Hello and welcome everyone. So I've been able to resume playtesting of my Memoir 44 scenario on Operation Bagration called Payback. So what I'm going to do is of this particular playtest, I'm going to run you through each and every player turn. The board consists of 3 breakthrough boards side by side. I've already recorded another video on this scenario, briefly explaining the rules and everything, and what's supposed to happen. I may refer to that every now and again. But mostly now I'll go into the turns. It's as I said, it's 3 breakthrough boards side by side. You need 36 medals to win. I may still change that to slightly less, probably not more. But let's see how it goes. Both sides get medals for controlling town hexes. This one is actually already Russian controlled, so I've got a German medal on it to denote that the Germans can actually take it. That's probably not going to happen, but theoretically they could. And for instance, this particular town hex, which is actually a fortress, so I've also denoted it by means of a fortress terrain tile, has a Soviet medal on it. It's actually an Axis and Allies piece because I didn't have enough medals for all the towns and everything. So I've used, for the Soviets that is, so I've used that one. And still town control rules are in effect as well, as long as the Germans control at least 2 out of the 5 that actually have such a town control marker, they gain 5 extra medals. So that the idea is to keep the pressure on the Russians a little bit, because probably, if you keep playing long enough, the Russians will win eventually, as they should, probably, this scenario. But this will keep a bit of time pressure on them. And something else which basically hopefully accomplishes that to a certain extent is that there are a couple of frontline German units that are actually depleted. Now, they have fewer figures, but destroying one doesn't actually yield you any medals, so they are a bit of a nuisance. They may actually inflict some losses on you, and you don't get medals for them, but probably you don't want to leave them all in place either, because, as I said, they will probably, grind you down is probably a bit of an overstatement, but, they are pesky. So that's basically the idea, and both sides also get points for exiting units off the German baseline. I didn't actually put any exit markers, I see, but it's basically all across the German baseline from any legal hex. I believe they may even get 2 points for that. And there are some sudden death conditions as well. If the Russians ever control all town hexes on the board, or they've exited at least, not at least, I mean, once they've done that, it's over, because it's a sudden death condition. Once they've exited 6 armor units off the board, they automatically win as well. And the Germans can also exit their units. Historically, they didn't manage to do that too well, because Hitler forbade the German units to retreat, as he so often did. And that is also portrayed in this scenario by means of the Germans not being allowed to voluntarily move backwards and having to ignore all flags up to a certain point in the game. And you roll 2d6s, and as soon as the number is below the actual turn number, then those restrictions are lifted, so you can actually retreat, and also off the map. Now, I'm going to have to wait and see how that turns out, because, for instance, here the Russians have some relatively strong armored units in the back. If I just leave them there, and let's just say in turn 4 or something, they're, on average, it should take a little bit longer, but let's just say it happens on turn 4 and they just retreat all those units, well, then they can score victory points pretty quickly. But of course, the Russian that's another reason why the Russians need to keep the pressure on, and that's also why they can do it until that particular die roll. So sometimes it may take a longer time, sometimes it may happen pretty quickly, so that will also make each scenario a little bit different. Now, as I said, after this small introduction, Let me tell you what the Russians did on their first turn, because they actually moved first. By means of a star, I've shown that is a unit that became available because of a ground reinforcement die roll. The flag is a unit that, because of the ground reinforcement die roll, was allowed to make an on-the-move order, or to execute an on-the-move order. This engineer unit removed a minefield, and after that it can do anything else. So that's what I use these markers for, orange ones, to show that they can't attack anymore, but they can actually remove the minefield, which is what they did. This tank unit is a special unit, special rules, a mine-sweeping tank, which was used heavily by the Russians in this particular battle. And they are allowed to remove the minefield and still attack. They do have to stop. They can't move any further on that turn, but they attacked this German depleted unit here, and they scored a hit. They also rolled a flag, but flags are to be ignored, as I said, up to a certain extent, up to a certain time in the game, depending on that die roll. This unit also removed a minefield, and well, that was it, obviously. On the other board, well, yeah, that might be interesting to tell you as well. On this board, the Russians played a recon in force, so 1 unit in each section. On this board, they played issue an order to 4 units of your choice, direct from headquarters. This particular unit became available again because of the ground reinforcement die roll. Well, it didn't become available. It was allowed to make an on-the-move, to execute an on-the-move order. They didn't get an extra unit on that one. These 2 tank units moved forward and fired at this special infantry unit, which suffered heavy losses. It lost 3 of its figures. Here we have the other 2 units that did something. This tank unit removed a minefield, because it's also a mine-sweeping tank, and the artillery fired, and they caused 2 hits against the town hex, which is a fortress. And it is important to know that artillery and tanks cannot enter fortresses, so they will have to build a pontoon bridge, which is another special rule in this scenario, that the Russians are allowed to pontoon bridges, but to build pontoon bridges, but here they will actually have to, because they cannot move through this fortress hex, and they cannot cross the river either, just like that. On this board, they also played a direct from headquarters. The artillery unit here fired. Tank unit here again removed a minefield and still attacked and inflicted a hit here. What else? Here we have a tank unit that became available because of the ground reinforcement roll. This wasn't on the move, and here 2 minefields were removed by the engineer tank and the engineer unit, so to speak. They both did. Well, this one wasn't allowed to fire anymore because it removed the minefield. This one also removed the minefield, but was allowed to still fire, but the 1 die they fired at this particular unit did not score any hits. So that concludes the first Russian turn, along with a bit of an introduction to this scenario. So I'll keep on playtesting, and the next video will be on the first German turn. Thank you for watching, and hopefully see you after the next one.